How's it going? Jacob Dupre here, and I'm going to teach you a lesson on autumn leaves. And my goal for this series is not to edit it too much. I'm just going to be myself. I'm not going to try to be perfect. I'm not going to try to be super scripted. Basically, this is like you're sitting down with me, sitting on the piano bench next to me, and I'm showing you some stuff you can do over autumn leaves. And if I go down a rabbit hole, I'm just going to let it happen. If I start going on a tangent talking about one specific kind of playing you can do, I will. Doesn't mean it's the end all. Doesn't mean I'm going to cover every single thing you could possibly do. But I'm just going to come at it as myself, as a player, and just give you a little lesson on this tune. So I've got I reel up, and yes, I know it's not as authentic as a real jazz trio, but it's plenty good enough for, practice purposes. It plays the bass line relatively well. You got a nice swing groove in the background. You can change the tempo and the key. It's just a great tool for the modern jazz musician, and for those of us that have to do a lot of playing alone at home, it's perfect. It's great for that. So that's what I'm going to play along with today. And to start out, I'm going to say something that I preach all the time to all the students I have. I teach remote lessons, in person. I've taught different age groups, all the way from kids to adults, and I always stress, learn the melodies, okay? In the day of social media and trying to get your quick 30 seconds of fame so you can go viral, everybody just focuses on improv. So much of what you see in jazz or related genres with improvisational elements, it's people just showing you the craziest, whiz-bang thing they can do in like 30 seconds. Okay, that's really cool, but when it comes to playing standards especially, we have to remember that there are melodies to these tunes. Those are important. There would be no Autumn Leaves solos out there to transcribe and study if we didn't have Autumn Leaves, the tune, the great composition by Joseph Kozma. I was going to make sure I said that right, and there it is. So learn these tunes. Even better, learn to sing them. So before we even go crazy into the changes, how to play over this chord progression, how to comp, solo, thinking about phrasing, building solos, all the fun stuff. I know that's the fun stuff. Let's just go to that melody. So, the autumn leaves drift by my window, the autumn leaves of red and gold. You gotta know that, right? And it doesn't matter if you have a great singing voice or not. Learn melody, learn to sing it. But that'll be for you to do. I won't do the whole thing now. But let's go ahead and just hear what this tune is. So I'll just play along with the recording, just the melody in the right hand, and listen to how I phrase it. So I'm going to try to build this slowly. This is just going to be playing the melody in the right hand, okay? As simply as I can for now. Okay, I'll do it again. So I got to play a pickup. You got to play a pickup to this. See, I made a mistake. I'm not going to cut it out. I don't care. So I tried playing it really simply, and if you were to look at this written in a fake book, it's all quarter notes and half notes, very on the beat. And that's because a lot of these old tunes were written as Broadway tunes first. You know, they were interpreted later after years and years of existing in a jazz context. I don't know the specific history of this tune right off the bat, you can look it up, but more than likely it was around for a long time before somebody like Miles or Bill Evans or all the other players came along and interpreted it in the way that we generally know it now. That jazz musicians, if you go hear them play in any club in the world, it'll probably sound about like that, one of those versions. So that was a very simple statement of the melody, but I was already starting to incorporate a couple ways to make it more in a jazz context, because that's very important. You don't want to just play the melody of the tune when it starts out. Really on the beat like that and straight. I mean, it sounds okay because it's a great composition and the melody's nice, but it's not swinging, it doesn't have any feeling. So to give it that feeling, you start to take something like these quarter notes, these pickups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And you just make, instead of playing the first note right on beat 1, play it on the and after that. So instead of 1, do da do da, play 1, ba do da da. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And then here you can do and of 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. 2, 3, 4, 1. And so that's taking a very simple tune that was originally, again, just very downbeat centric in its sort of original form, and giving it a little swing by just moving things over by an eighth note, essentially. A very triplety swung eighth note, a 1 to 2 and a 1. Bow, 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 bow. Sometimes you can almost think like a big band. Bow, da, da, da. Like I'm feeling these internalized rhythms, these triplety swing rhythms, triplet, ba, boo-da, 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 boo-da. Like that is in me sort of organically even when I'm just doing something simple like playing the melody like that. So that's very important to be able to do. Forget being able to play, 5, 6 note chords and alterations and sidestepping and playing out of the key and double time lines, all the stuff we love to obsess about. You got to be able to do that. You got to be able to play with a click like this. Essentially, this is playing with a metronome, and play with good time and swing, even if it's simple like that. You got to be able to do that first. So you can stop and practice right now if you want to. Just stop, work on that, just with the one hand. If you want to play it with both, you can. That's not a bad exercise. Which is actually a good thing to work on, because later we might be adding some chords like... And so if you're used to playing in an octave, it's easy to fill in chords with what you could call kind of a George Shearing style, or a 4-way close style voicing. It's a close position voicing with an octave and 3 notes in the middle, at least 3 notes. So that would be like a B flat major 6 chord with the top note doubled underneath, which if you listen to a lot of big band arranging, especially in the swing era, that's how you would hear, say, a saxophone section arranged. You'd have that octave, the bari and the alto at the top, and then the other saxes on the middle. So that's that kind of sound. As maybe some might think it's a little dated, but I still love using it because it's so useful for harmonizing melodies. And we'll get into that a little bit. So you can't just do that though, right? You can't just play the right hand melody and never play a chord. I mean, you could, technically you could, but in most situations, if you're going to sit in on a jam session or you're trying to record, or, in just a typical context, you got to play the harmonies too, right? We got to play those beautiful harmonies that are the counterpoint to the melody. And simply put, counterpoint is the relationship between the melody and the bass, which dictates a lot of what happens in the inner voices. So if we were to just take the bass, the left hand part of Autumn Leaves, and the top note, the melody, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4. And there's a few things to know about that. This bass movement is following the circle of fifths. Or if you go the other way, the inversion of a fifth is a fourth. So a perfect fourth would be from C to F. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a fourth. But if you go down, that's a fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same two notes, just going in different directions, right? C to F, C to... So we go around this circle, of perfect intervals, the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth. If any of this theory confuses you, just do a Google, a ChatGPT, a whatever. It'll explain it to you fast, or you can find another video, come back to this one. Look, I understand how the internet works. I get it. You're going to go figure out for yourself. Okay, so going around that cycle, though, and it's almost all perfect intervals, the perfect fourths and fifths, the circle of fifths, except when we get here. That's a tritone. So it's one half step different, one semitone different from a perfect interval, from a perfect fourth or fifth. So it's a little bit different sound. That's a tritone, perfect fifth, tritone, which is a real evil sounding interval, actually. But then we're back. So mostly a circle of fifths progression in the root movement. And then against the melody, that is a minor third. So spaced out that way, it's a tenth. But if you were to put it in an octave, that's a minor third. And the melody and the bass, the counterpoint between the two, ends up putting thirds on a lot of these notes in the same place. So, putting thirds end up being the melody note in the progressions, in the progression, right? So, third, 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 third. So on these chords, C minor, the melody is following this guide tone line that is almost perfectly kind of following the resolution of 7 to 3, which is an important thing to know to understand basic harmony in general, but especially jazz harmony, because we have here several examples of the 2-5-1, which if you're watching this video, you've probably heard of before. So if we start on the first chord and we have a third, C minor 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. So we have the root and the bass C and the minor third. That's going to stay over the F, so C minor, that's the third. Now it's the 7, the flat 7, resolving to 3 on B flat major 7. Now it's the 7 again, resolving to 3 on A half diminished 7. Now to 3, minor 3 on G minor. So it's chasing, if I were to just analyze what note in the chord the melody is through that and play this line, 3, 7, 3, 7, 3, 7, 3. So that is the basic progression that's going on here. And now building upon that, getting back to what I was saying before about voicings, you have to be able to trace these resolutions within these progressions to be able to play harmonies. Now, if you can't explain it the way I just did and you're not that deep into the theory, that doesn't matter. Honestly, the theory, in my opinion, is to push your ears to get to the place where you want to play the way you want to play. But once you're playing, and once you understand it intuitively in your mind's ear, and your ears understand it, the theory kind of doesn't matter anymore, because it just becomes music, and it's subjective, and it's human, and it's in the moment, and it makes us feel things. It makes people feel things that have never studied music in their life, and that's why we love music, because it just speaks emotion without words. That's why it's an art. So use the theory to push yourself to make the art you want to make, but the theory's not the end all, if that makes sense. So back to the music, you got to take one of these basic 7 chords just in root position and be able to play through the changes. So let me show you what I mean. Start with C minor 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. And just a quick crash course on how to find these chords. You can start on, if you want to find any 7th chord, it's made of 4 notes, 4 chord tones, the root, 3rd, 5th, and 7. That's C major 7. So notes from the C major scale, all natural. But now to make a minor 7 chord, you got to flat the 3, the 3rd of the chord, and the 7. So that's the E and the B. So root position C minor 7 chord would be like that. C major 7 with the major 3rd and major 7, both natural. Now minor 7, minor 3rd, flat 7, or dominant 7th as we call it. Now a dominant 7, this can get confusing. A dominant 7 chord has a major 3rd, so that's a C triad with a B flat on top, which is the flat 7. So C major 7, C dominant 7, C minor 7. Now if you also flat the 5th, you get a half diminished. So one more time, C major 7, natural 1, 3, 5, 7. C dominant 7 with a flat 7. C minor 7 with a flat 3rd and 7th. And a half diminished 7th with a flat 3, 5, and 7. Now if you lower the 7th again, you get a fully diminished chord. Fully diminished 7th. This would be a C diminished 7th chord. But we're not going to worry about that one yet. Those other ones, the major 7, the minor, the major 7, the dominant 7th, the minor 7, and the half diminished 7 give you all the chords you need for Autumn Leaves, with the exception of the minor 6, which we'll talk about. But for the most part, if you can find those chords in any key, you can play this tune. Of course. Now, if you can play those chords in any key, you can play just about any tune. But to be able to play Autumn Leaves, you got to be able to know these chords, at least in the standard key. Of course, when we practice, once you get advanced enough, you want to try to play these tunes in as many keys as you can, which means you do need to be able to play all these 7th chords in multiple inversions and voicings in every key. But I don't want to freak you out. We're not worried about that today. Okay, that's maybe later for you, depending on where you are in your journey. But for now, just focusing on this tune, one standard in the standard key, which in this case is B flat / G minor, B flat major / G minor. Just try playing in that key. So start with finding the C minor 7. So C, E flat, G, and B flat. And try to see if you can play through the changes, not playing root position voicings, meaning you're keeping the root of the chord on the bottom, so like this. It's terribly clunky. The voice leading is not smooth at all. Again, voice leading meaning treating each note in the chord as its own voice, as if it were a sax section or choir, and making sure each note is moving the smallest amount it can, for the most part, so that it sounds smooth. So the difference would be, that's with having the root at the bottom, root position voicings, jumping all over the place, versus this. Hear how much smoother and nice that is? It's because the voices are moving very smoothly. That's what we'll say, ooh, that's smooth voice leading. It's because they're not having to jump, they're just going right to the next logical note that it would resolve to, the next closest note in the chord. So, for instance, C minor 7, we're hearing those 3rds and 7s, right? Resolving. I'll play the bass in the left hand too. So, 7 resolving, 7. So that's C minor 7, dominant 7, resolving to the 3rd of F7. then that becomes the major 7 of B flat, resolving to the 3rd of E flat major. The flat 7 of A half diminished 7, resolving to D7. Then that 3rd could go down to 6. I'm not sure I did that right, so I'm going to do it again. 7 going to 3. 3. Sorry. 7 going to 3. 7 going to 3. 7 going to 3. Going to 6 over G minor. So. So that is something you could refer to as a guide tone line, because it's going through the changes, making the resolutions, and it's just a little line that you can follow. And those are important to learn, because when you'll see when you're improvising, they kind of give you guideposts to follow when you're improvising through changes like this. If you understand these resolutions, they can come out in your playing. Even if you're playing more complex lines, maybe go up and down your instrument, you know, being chromatic and doing all the fun tricks we like to talk about in jazz improvisation, you still have that as your basis. It's embedded in that, which is why eventually you can achieve what I think is the ultimate goal for any improvisation, which is to be able to hear the changes even without chords. So no root, no comping, just playing linear lines, and you can still hear the changes. And I'm going to show you about how to do that later. So, first exercise thing to practice on your own is to just play the minor 7 chords, Play just 7th chord voicings, start root position, or start in any inversion. Inversions are just taking the same note up, right? Just taking it and cycling the same group of notes up and down. Pretty simple. So you can start anywhere on the instrument, either right or left hand, honestly. But usually we're comping with the left hand and soloing with the right. That's a typical context for improvising in jazz on the piano. So probably with your left hand is a good place to start. And try that smooth voice leading. I'm going to go ahead and play it now. I'm just going to play with the track through the whole thing. Maybe I'll speed it up a little bit just so it takes a little less time. And here we go. Ah. All chord tones. No extensions, no color notes, just 1, 3, 5, 7. And no rhythms yet. Just playing whole notes, that's fine. We're just figuring out the chords. Yeah, so right there I got in kind of a pickle because when I got to the G minor, it started to get a little low. And again, these voicings are clunky, and I'm going to explain why. Obviously, it doesn't sound like real left-hand voicings yet. But this is just getting the bones of it. Understanding, being able, I know for a lot of you watching this, just being able to find every note in these chords and be able to play it like that and have the coordination to shift between, that's a lot. I understand. Which is why you might have to start just saying, okay, C, minor 3rd. Okay, I got C minor 7, F7. Got to put the F start with F, 3rd, major 3rd, 5th. You might have to go through it really slow like that at first to find these chord voicings. That's okay. Do that. Don't rush yourself. Be slow. It's okay to take it slow. If you go fast, you're just going to half learn a lot of things, and your end result is going to just kind of be confusing and not really authentic enough. You know, it's going to be an approximation of what you're trying to sound like rather than the real thing. So build it slowly. Work on these building blocks. But eventually, once you can play those root position 7th chords and you can shift to trying to play them through the changes with more economical voice leading, with smoother voice leading, just like I did. Now what'll happen, because you might notice that in a lot of these circle of fifths, these 2-5 progressions that you'll call them in jazz, like a 2-5-1, which that's the autumn leaves, that's the beginning, it's a 2-5-1. We get a lot of 2-5-1s in this, is that they resolve down. They commonly resolve down. So 7 resolve into 3, 7, 3. And so what happened was when I got here, I started to get a little too low because those chords are just going down, 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 down. But then I go back to A half diminished. So at some point, usually when you're comping, you're gonna have to shift, typically, make a shift up. And one way to do that is simply to just go to a higher, inversion of a chord. So if I'm here at E7 and I need to go to A half diminished and I don't want to go down, I can just go up. It's not as smooth. Sometimes it'll be a little less smooth, but that's okay because eventually you don't want your chords to sound like this. Because that just is terrible for voicings. The notes are too low, they're too close together. We're not getting the right overtones to actually even hear what the chord quality is. It just starts to sound like mush the lower you get. Kind of similar thing that happens up here. You can hear the quality of the chord just like you can down there, but it's different. So again, these are things you can go study how the overtone series works and how chords are generally voiced like the overtone series and go get into that nerdiness if you want to. There's probably a great Adam Neely video about it and thousands of other ones at this point. But is it going to help you be a better player today? No, it's not. Again, it's using your ear and focusing on the basic elements, good time, playing a melody with good feeling, understanding how these chords move, understanding harmony. All that stuff is really more important. And you can get that from an intuitive nature of just saying, this sounds good and this doesn't. The Duke Ellington, if it sounds good, it is good. Okay, remember that. That's a guiding principle to take through your whole life. If it sounds good, it is good, probably. So once you're able to do that, now you're going to be asking, how do I make these voicings sound better, right? Because they sound clunky, they are not colorful enough this way. It sounds okay, and if you swing a little bit and give it a feel, it's okay, but they're not colorful enough. So a simple trick to do is once you have these root position chords down, or really I should say when you have the basic 7th chord voicings down, you can play them through different inversions, that's just with 1, 3, 5, 7. Replace the 1 with the 9. So start on C minor 7. This is the 1, the root of the chord, C. If you just replace that with the 9 or the 2, because the 2nd scale degree is also called the 9, now it goes from this to this. So now that's a much better voicing when you have a bass player and you don't need to play the bass to be able to comp with. So that'd be a C minor 9, because you have C, E flat, the 3rd, 5th G, B flat, it's the flat 7th, and then D, which is the 9. Now the reason we call it a 9 is because it's an octave up. It's higher up. If we were going to call it a 2, it'd technically be down here, closer to where the root is. But when it's up, voiced up high like that, as an extension in jazz, we call it a 9. So basically you can take the first octave of any scale, which goes, for the major scale goes to 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to the root. Any of those notes, you add 7, and you get the extension, right? So if you have the 2, that becomes the 9. If you have the 4th, that becomes an 11, like in a minor 11 chord, which has a 9 and an 11 on top of a minor 7th. So the C minor 7, 9, 11. Okay. If you go again, another third up from that, you get the 13. And now we've played every note in the Dorian scale, which is one of the minor scales. So chords are scales, scales are chords, right? C minor Dorian is a scale, but if you were to take all these notes and take this 7th chord and this one, that both come from that scale, and just space them out over 2 octaves, now you have this beautiful, colorful voicing that gives you the complete sound of the Dorian mode, but it's spaced out over 2 octaves rather than all in one. And rather than playing that sound linearly like a melody, you're playing it as a chord, which is more of an up and down kind of thing, right? So back to the voicings. C minor 9, playing this inversion here. Now if I keep that kind of chord, just start with that voicing, I'm going to do the same thing I was doing with the other chords, with the simple 7th chords, and try to play smooth voice leading through the whole tune. So here's what that sounds like. So I know there's a lot more going on there than what I can explain or right now, or this will be like a 4-hour video. But basically, I was going through rootless voicings, left-hand voicings, through these changes. So starting with the C minor 9 rootless voicing, and then if I keep as many common tones as I can, but just make the 7 resolve to the 3, which is the basic counterpoint we need to hear the harmony. So if I add that, that line is still in there, but then I add the other notes on top. See how that works? So I'm using as many common tones as I can. If I keep the first chord the same, as many notes the same, going from C minor to F, F7, keep those top 3 notes the same, now I have an F13 chord, which is like a dominant 7. That'd be root position F. But then I'm playing it here, the 7 and 3 here, root 7 and 3rd. And then if I add the 6th scale degree, which remember we add 7, so it's a 13, that's a 13th. So that's another way to just take an F7 chord and make it more colorful. Take out the 5th and change it for the 6th scale degree or the 13. All of a sudden, it's more colorful. And now if we do the 9th trick again, we take out the root in the left-hand voicing, what would be the left-hand voicing, and make it the 9. Now it's a really colorful voicing, and we're not doubling the root, which we don't need to do because the bass is playing that in the track. So again, starting with F7 in just a very basic chord, just the chord tones. Replace the 5th with the 13 or the 6th scale degree, and replace the root with the 2nd scale degree or the 9th. So going from this to this. you go. And basically, I'm following that pattern through the whole tune. One specific thing to note is the half diminished chord going to this dominant to the minor 1. So that's a 2-5-1 in G minor. Those, on the 2 chord, I'm playing just the chord tones. Most of the time I was just doing that. Doubling the root, which is okay sometimes. Even if it's not a rootless voicing, it's all right. So that's A half diminished 7th. Then going to D, but again, kind of like the other chord, keeping the top 3 notes the same and just resolving the 7 to the 3, 2, 5, 2, 5, 1. But in the chord, this is the 7th of A half diminished, 7 going to 3 of D, then that resolves to the 6. But now if I add the top voices, so see how that works? So we've gone now through taking the roots out of the chords and adding another color tone here or there. So basically trying not to double the root or the 5th of the chords unless it's necessary. Like with the half diminished chord, you have to have that flat 5th in there. Because if you don't, it's not really descript enough, you know, for the most part. It's okay to play little short shell voicings. I'm sure I'll do that later, just 2 or 3 notes. But to play the full chord and get the full harmony, you got to have at least the 7, the 3, and that flat 5. Because that's what defines it as half diminished. If it's got a natural 5th, it just sounds like a minor 7 chord. Like this is A minor 7. But with a lowered 5th, now we hear that minor quality that it has. That's making us feel like we're going to a minor key. Because a minor 2-5 really is a minor 2-5 because the 1 is minor, but also because it has a half diminished 2. Half diminished with that minor sounding color because of the flat 5th. So that's important. So basically, I just took that formula and worked it through the whole tune. Not going to break the whole thing down, every single chord right now, but that's it. So now we can put it together. Now I'm going to play the left-hand voicings, rootless voicings that I've come up with, just simple block chords, and play the melody in that swing style. Here we go. I'm going to miss the pickup every time. Okay, and I started to improvise a little bit, which is a good segue, because now I've got some voicings going. This is the basic thing that you need to be able to do. You saw that journey. That's basically like summing up decades of my life into however long this video is going to be. That is the thing, being able to take the path for being able to spell the basic chords, then being able to take out some of those doublings you don't need, make the chords slightly more colorful, be able to trace through the harmonies. Again, having the foundation of understanding the sevenths, understanding the resolutions, those guide tone lines, those important notes that are moving, and then being able to play with it a little bit. And now we start going into the space of right hand kind of vocabulary, improvisational vocabulary. Now, I'll jump into this by saying what I said before. Remember, chords are scales, scales come from chords. Chord-scale relationships, as they say. So just like I took that Dorian mode, which that's a linear way of playing the mode, but you can also play it as a chord, which is taking these same notes and stretching them out. So that's why learning harmony is important, because the harmony helps inform your melodic concepts and vice versa. They feed into each other, okay? Same groupings of notes, just played in different ways. That's really what it comes down to. Okay, so how do we start building vocabulary to be able to improvise like that? You can start similar to how I described building your left hand harmonic vocabulary and doing that with the right. So taking the simple chord tones, each chord just in root position, and be able to arpeggiate the chord tones, just a very simple rhythm. So kind of like this. And I'll slow it down a little bit now. But see, all I was doing was taking, bring it back to 120. All I was doing is taking C minor 7, 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3, 5, 7 over F, F7, F dominant 7, B flat major 7, E flat major 7, A half diminished, D, and G minor 6. Which I don't think I've fully explained yet, but probably you might already get it, but it's basically just a minor triad. It's just a minor triad with a 6 on top. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to the root. That's the Dorian mode in G. That's G Dorian. Sorry, that was not the right. It's G Dorian. So that's kind of the note collection we're in. So G minor, triad, 1, 3, flat 3, 5, and then just add the 6. And now you have G minor 6. Okay? So being able to arpeggiate through all those chords is very important. See if I can pick up from where's it going to start? It's going to start at the beginning. That's fine. But anyway, being able to go through, I didn't get to the bridge, but that says E7 there. That's fine. You can do it that way. Okay. So once you're able to do that, with which again, kind of like the voicings, because all we're doing is just taking those notes we've been playing as block chords, and now we're arpeggiating them in the right hand. And just like with the voicings, you can do it with both hands. That's actually a good thing to practice, because then if you want to play, later, once you start, if you want to do that kind of like double-handed soloing technique, this is how you start. You got to play what your right hand can play. You got to try to do it with the left too, and practice that way as much as you can. So it's sounding clunky though, just like these voicings. This is sounding clunky. Yeah. So how does it get less clunky? Same thing, smoother voice leading. You got to try not to move around as much. So you could do it like this now. Started getting a little melodic there, but basically this is chord tone workout. That's what this is a chord tone workout. You're just trying to improvise using the chord tones. And I'm not really going crazy on the rhythm yet. You can keep it really simple with just these ba da 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 kind of things. You can try 1 5 3 7, 1 3 5 7, 7 5 3 1. However you want to do it. I actually teach with jazz lesson videos. That's Chad LB's site, makes a lot of great content, and this is something that I do with students all the time in there. in our jazz gym classes that we do over Zoom. It's, by the way, you should join that. You can learn with me and a lot of other great teachers. If you're not already in that, go check it out. But we do this a lot. We'll take standards and just force ourselves to play solos using only chord tones. It's tough, especially if you've kind of got a good ear and you've learned some other kind of licks and you've got some chops doing other things. You have to turn all that off, you know, or you can't try to act like, you know, you're going to try to approximate how a Bill Evans sounds or how Oscar sounds on it and just get close. No, don't try to just get close to something that's kind of far in the distance. Start with something simple that works. Yes, this is not colorful. It's not sounding polished and professional yet to play this way, but it's building blocks. It's something you can stand on so that one day you can do something more like those other players that you admire, right? That's how it works. That's how you build any skill, really. You have to start with basics, even if it's not flashy yet. But now, how do we go from that to getting it sounding more like authentic vocabulary, idiomatic jazz language? Well, this is where you need to start adding in more chromaticism. That's a big part of it. So, for instance, you can take just these arpeggiations you're doing of the 7th chords and precede each note by a half step. Or what's called an enclosure is taking the note above and below, taking a note above it and below and enclosing that note. So if we wanted to enclose the 5th on C minor, we could do, so that's taking A flat and F sharp, which are the notes on either side of G, and circling it like that. If we want to do an enclosure of E flat, the 3rd, or just that one works, or so now all of a sudden, just instead of just going, you know, we can play like, so I know I'm throwing in other vocabulary. I'm kind of skipping to the end product a little bit. But you can see that just taking even some of those same chord tone shapes I was using before and adding a little more chromaticism, some notes that are kind of outside the basic chord, outside of the sort of global key a little bit. But that's what gives it the jazz flavor, is using, when we say chromatic notes, like the chromatic scale, which is literally just all the notes in order, all 12 tones that we're used to in Western music and that tonal system, just incorporating as many of those notes as we can to help us find creative ways to get from point A to point B, to make resolutions and to play these kinds of phrases. Now, the other way, I really got ahead of myself here. Bad, Jacob. Really, the best place to start is with the melody. You know, you got to eventually be able to do what I just did with the chord tones as well. That vocabulary will come in, has to come in eventually. But you can get so many great ideas and start learning how to be melodic when you improvise, just sticking with the melody. And this is such a great melody for that, because remember, it has that guide tone line built in. The third, 7 resolving to 3, 7 resolving to 3. Those are great guideposts, as I called them earlier, for improvisation. So check it out. I'm just going to give you a little demonstration. See how I'm leaving space? I'm listening to the drums. So that was very simple for the most part, but you can already start to see kind of where my vocabulary comes from. And it's not super unique. It's probably similar to the majority of players that you listen to or learn from out there playing standards like this, you know, at this kind of level, I guess, it's a combination of a little bit of melodicism, kind of using the simple shapes from the melody. I really like that sixth interval that's kind of part of the melody if you were to kind of abstract it a little bit. And I used that. That kind of almost became my motif. You can look up what a motif is. Basically, it's a main idea that stretches through an entire song. It's like the sort of core of the story. And so I made that sort of my character, almost like my main character in my little story I was telling with that solo. But I got away from it and started to use a little bit of that vocabulary I was talking about, which is kind of the sort of chord tone thing, using a little chromaticism. I did this thing here. So that's just chord tones. And that was just one little moment where I kind of got away from the melody for a second to kind of play some of that other more chromatic kind of bebop vocabulary. Bebop, we're thinking Charlie Parker, Dizzy, that great music that really gave us kind of the fundamental vocabulary that most of us learn that study jazz. That and the blues are kind of the bedrock of jazz vocabulary. So a lot of these elements are starting to come together. But now you're probably saying, okay, but still, that's not the whole picture. You know, how do I get the Oscar Peterson sounding licks, the Herbie licks, the Bud Powell, the Miles Davis, the Bill Evans stuff? You know, where does that come in? Well, basically, it's just a compounding of these basic fundamentals and exploring greater depths of chromaticism and kind of subjective musical taste and different kinds of techniques all blurred together to create just this wonderful human experience that is improvisation, which is a lot of it is just regurgitation, because all this stuff I'm playing, I've played in some way or another before. I've practiced it in multiple keys and rehearsed it to death over years and years and years, but it's become so intuitive that I can creatively regurgitate it over many different tunes and different keys. And it always, my playing and a lot of people's playing when they improvise probably have a lot of commonalities and almost sound the same. Most of them sound very similar from solo to solo, but they're not all exactly the same either. A little bit the same, but different every time. And that's what improvisation is. It's part memorized material and part inspiration. That's really what it comes down to. So I'll play a solo now and just really kind of go for it for a couple choruses. And then I'll maybe do a little breakdown of what I'm doing, some of maybe the other extended techniques I didn't talk about thus far. And then probably we can wrap it up after that. So here we go. Oh, I gotta say, okay, I'm not playing the melody first. And I know I said that's like a sin and you shouldn't do that, but I played it earlier, okay? And we're just talking about improvisation now. It's a lesson. But that sort of preaching I did for you was to remember not to only practice that way. Don't just practice series of chord changes without playing melodies. Don't, you know, sometimes if you're really zeroing in on it, that kind of practice is okay. But don't let your practice become playing hours and hours of chorus after chorus after chorus of the same stuff over and over again that you already know how to play. Practice performing. You know, screw it. I'm gonna practice what I preach. I'm gonna speed this thing up so it doesn't take forever, and I'm gonna play the melody in a block chord style. So that's like I was saying before with the octave, but then you fill the chord in the middle. Kind of like that. So octave with like 3 or 4 notes in the middle. And then I'll play a couple choruses. Okay, here we go. some liberties with the melody. That's okay sometimes. Single line, keeping it simple for now. Coughing. Same rhythm. I'm not going to sacrifice the swing. I want to swing. Got to stop tapping my feet. It messes me up sometimes. I'm excited. The triplet. Got to feel the triplets. Crisper swing. Okay, so not exactly the most focused solo I've ever taken, but that was more like me practicing, you know, and exploring ideas a little bit. But I had a lot of moments I really liked. I wouldn't necessarily depend upon that to become my Grammy Award-winning jazz single. Maybe. But there was a lot of, you know, there were moments of brilliance that I liked, you know, of nice sounding stuff that I've been playing for a long time. But as you'll see, even as long as I've been playing, when you start really getting into the weeds and stretching out, it's easy to forget the time, to drag a little bit, to rush a little bit, to not be swinging quite as hard as maybe you could be. And so when I'm practicing, I always try to refocus myself if I can and not get too much in the creative process and just really focus on time. That's so important to me, is just being able to, you know, make it feel so good. So that was a pretty good chorus. I felt good about that. It swung. I was feeling it. Now back to sort of the theory lesson and the whole rigmarole of all that. Kind of the way you get to, or even start to approach kind of that kind of vocabulary, there's a lot of things going on. So one thing I was using a lot was these block chords that I kind of talked about being a George Shearing thing. So that. Also, that specific harmonization is typically attributed to Barry Harris. And that kind of harmonization is coming from the bebop scale. The bebop scale is like a major scale with one extra note between the 5th and the 6th. Now when you take this scale and start with a major 6th sound, which again, this is that octave with 3 notes in the middle, 1, 3, 5, 6, back to the 1. And you walk that chord through the scale, you get this. And then the minor version, so now if you make it minor, it goes from a major 6 to a minor 6 chord. Our G minor 6 from Autumn Leaves. Now walk it through. Basically all that is inversions of 2 chords played in sequence. You have a minor 6, G minor 6, and then you have an A diminished 7. And all their inversions. Then the diminished. Now if you take all those inversions, those chords, and just play them straight ahead, trying to decide if I have a little latency. I might, depends, we'll see. But anyway, so I was using that a lot. And that passing diminished harmonization, you can play through the whole melody that way. One more time. 2 bars intro. See, mistakes again. Again, I'm kind of paraphrasing the melody a little bit, which there are a lot of people that have frowned upon that completely, but if you listen to a lot of great recordings, players have been doing that forever. Doesn't mean you don't learn the original version of it. You should still be able to play just the simple version of Autumn Leaves. And I think I even messed it up at one point, because the second time it's different. It starts with it's not exactly the same the second time. So that's an important thing. You know, you don't want to play it exactly the same way, like I probably did 45 minutes ago. But it's hard to teach and play at the same time. Trust me, if you do it long enough, you'll know. So that's one thing, that block chord style. But then also just using several phrases that I've gotten from years of transcribing, listening, and studying other players. The language like, you know, and a little blues vocabulary, you know. The blues scale, of course, we all talk about that, but typically I stay away from it. Just a little too dorky, usually for me, but elements of the blues notes. But kind of getting into the way I play, I like to leave a lot of space, which you heard me do. Use a lot of the same rhythms. You know, I usually like to start with some kind of rhythm and see if I can keep it going. I definitely was using a bit of those Bill Evans triplet kind of things. You know, the kind of stuff like this, you know. Not perfect, but demonstrations. So a few different things, you know, arpeggiations, just a simple triads. That's why I'm so glad when I was coming up playing, I practiced. My left hand's always worse than my right, but it means when I want to, with my right hand when I'm soloing, you know, I know that's more to think about than maybe you bargained for. And if you got through this whole video, kudos to you. But what I'll say is that this has taken years for me to get to this point. And like I said, I'm not a perfect player. And maybe this video will read to many of you kind of almost like a diary of a musician, kind of where I'm at right now and what I've learned. But that's okay. You know, hopefully if you found this video, you're somebody that's wanted to play for a long time, or maybe you played when you're young and you want to get into playing again, and you just wanted something inspiring to get to know a player that's been through it, that kind of knows what it takes. And hopefully this gives you that and gives you a little inspiration. Because I hear from students all the time, because I teach a lot of regular students that are trying to find inspiration, and maybe it's something going on in their life or the world around them that's kind of dissuaded them from wanting to get into music fully or come back to it again. And you don't have to make it your career, you don't have to make it your life, but I promise you that if you can bring a little music into your world, it'll make it better. Playing an instrument is just so good for your soul and so good for your heart. And like I said, music is kind of emotional intelligence without words. You know, it doesn't even need it. And you want that truth in you because it touches something greater than us. There's no doubt. It's science and math and theory and art and human experience all rolled into one. So you got to go for it. So there's a little piano lesson and philosophical detour on Autumn Leaves. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you subscribe. Maybe I'll make more videos like this. Maybe next time I'll make one that's cut down to more like 10 or 15 minutes. But I just wanted to try this and see what everyone thinks. So thanks so much for watching. See you next time.